Welcome to another session. It is an episode on modern mindset. We are here to humanize the world of work, business, change and transformation. So in today's session, what I want to do is I want to talk to this question. Is there more to how we make decisions that impact success than we first might consider? So let's dive into today's session. Have you ever watched the movie, or do you remember the movie Sliding Doors? It has been out for quite a few decades now, I believe, but it was a Hollywood movie starring Gwyneth Paltrow, and the whole concept of the sliding doors, of course, was the sliding doors of the London Underground tubes. And it was, you know, the concept of when she pushes the doors open, she makes the effort to push those doors open and get onto a train, versus she sees the doors closing, and she just, you know, falls back and thinks, well, I'm not going to get it anyway, and doesn't get it. And then there's two parallel lives that go throughout the movie, of the life of the lady on the tube and the life of the lady that didn't get the tube. And really, our decisions are very much driven by this concept of sliding doors, which I'm going to be talking to you about today. And really, this is all to do with inside our head, right? We are talking about decision making. And of course, decision making needs to be framed within the whole concept of our minds, our thoughts, you know, because every decision is a thought before it becomes a decision. So let's have a look at some general things around mindset theory. So here you've got a couple of questions, and I don't know about you, just like thinking a couple, we've got a lot more than a couple, but have you ever said something to look good, to be cool, or as if you know something, you know, with somebody that you're wanting to impress, or a group that you might be new to? Have you ever stayed quiet because you don't want to make a fool of yourself, thinking that other people in the room are more knowledgeable or, you know, more important than you? Have you given up on someone because you think they'll never get it, making the assumption of somebody else's reality? Have you given up on something yourself because you think you'll never get it, not having the confidence and belief in your own capability and strength? Have you not tried something because of the challenge and potential to fail? That kind of speaks to that previous question. And have you ever taken an easy path to get somewhere or to look good? Now, I can probably answer yes on multiple occasions for each one of these questions that you can see here on this slide. And why is that? Because it's all about the way our brain works. Now, thinking about the way that our brain works, the easiest and the most mainstream concept for us to understand why we go one way or the other is, of course, the work of the psychologist Carol Dweck in her groundbreaking research on mindset. And what she did in her research was understand that there is a spectrum, where there is on one side of the spectrum a growth mindset, where there is on the other side of the spectrum a fixed mindset, which is what you can see here, some of the manifestations of both the growth and the fixed mindset. Now, it would be easy for me to ask you this question: which one are you? And that's a question we get asked so often. That's a question that we think to ourselves about other people. Oh, I definitely think that Jane is fixed mindset because, but actually, it's not that simple. It's not whether we are growth or fixed mindset at all. And Carol Dweck herself came to this realization when suddenly people started, you know, just attributing and polarizing and classifying and labeling people and groups of people to one or the other, when actually there is this false growth mindset. And really what she means here is, as you can read in this quote, is that we are not a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. We are both. What is incredibly important is for us to understand the things that trigger us into either a fixed or mindset state. And that's the power that we want to be harnessing today. It's the sliding door of, do I believe I can run and open that door before it closes on the tube, versus that door's closing anyway, so there's no point me running. So it's about the trigger that puts us into either that fixed or mindset state that is so incredibly important. And it's all to do with awareness. And that beautiful saying, you know, from the seed of self-awareness, anything can grow. From the seed of self-awareness, anything can grow. Now, self-awareness is attributed to be one of the 5 most important elements that, you know, surround really, really good leadership. And that comes from the work of Daniel Goleman many, many decades ago, when he talked about and popularized emotional styles of leadership and the concept of EQ, i.e. emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence 2.0 was then brought about by the work of Bradbury and Greaves, which is what you can see here. And the key thing is looking at this. Awareness is incredibly important, but equally aware is our ability to manage and control. Manage and control and to regulate, both in terms of ourselves, but also the more aware we are of our own tendencies to go fixed or growth, and therefore our ability to manage, the more able we are to be aware of, you know, others around us, the social awareness, and of course leading to relationship management. So really, really important for us to recognize that all of what we're talking about here is about self-awareness and control and management. Everything that I'm about to talk to you and share with you today is really the concept of triggers. Now, I did something really funny, and I went to Google and I started researching triggers by definition, because I like doing that. And those of you that know me know that I like a good quote to start off a conversation or a session like this. And I put it into Google, you know, tell me you know, the purpose and the value and the benefits of triggers. And this is what came out. The main purpose of triggers is to automate the execution of code when an event occurs. Now, this isn't talking about human beings. This is from MS SQL Tips. This is talking about artificial code. This is talking about technology code. This is talking about programming code, not about humans. And yet it's exactly the same. You know, you can apply that first sentence, you can apply that to the human. That is exactly what a trigger is. The main purpose of a trigger is to automate the execution of the action or the decision and the behavior when an event occurs. That's exactly what a trigger is when we're thinking about decision making, when we're thinking about building self-awareness. So let's have a look at that in the frame of modern mindset now, and how this can really, really support us. Awareness is absolutely key. So thinking about this concept of trigger, the important thing for us to recognize is understanding what a trigger is. Where, at what point does a trigger happen between a thought and the manifestation of a decision or an action? And then starting to notice it, and then starting to manage it. So each and every one of us, thousands if not millions of times every single day, are creating thoughts. And the thoughts that we create travel down what is called a neural pathway. Sometimes that neural pathway is new. Sometimes that neural pathway has already been traveled numerous times before. And the more it's been traveled, the more likely it is to either be a routine, or even more deeply, a neural pathway would be a habit. But thinking about conscious decision making, this is the thing that we want to be looking at. The neural pathway starts as a single thought. So it's a spark, it's a seed of thought, and it travels down a single pathway. And just, I know this is an oversimplification, but it's such an important thing for us all to be aware of, is that there comes a point, thinking about the growth and the fixed mindset work of Carol Dweck, there becomes a point of choice. We have a point of choice where we can determine whether that thought travels down toward that fixed decision, that fixed state, action or behavior, or whether that thought traverses down a growth decision, action and behavior. And it's that point that we want to understand. It's that point that is the trigger. It's that point that we want to become self-aware of, because that is the point of choice. That is the point that we can control, that we can start to self-regulate. And once we regulate that, then we are able to design, not just control, but to design our development, to design our own behavior and practice as a modern-minded leader. So that point, that trigger, can be either an internal trigger or an external trigger. And the internal trigger could be an emotion, it could be a memory. The external trigger could be what is happening around me. It could be the person in the room with me. It could be the time of day. It could be where we are, etc., etc. So what we're wanting to really do is we're wanting to start to understand what triggers, internally or externally, are pushing us either down a fixed or a growth state, because that will determine the decision or the action. And it will also determine the behavior that we put behind that decision or that action. So really, really important thing for us to understand is our triggers. Now, what do we do? How do we start to notice our triggers? Well, there's 3 steps to noticing our triggers. The first step is literally to become aware of it. And the way to become aware of it is to reflect upon our day, to reflect upon what's happened in our day, and think about where some of the places are, some of the decisions and actions that could have gone another way, and thinking about what made them go down that fixed or down that growth route. And if we're able to, bring that reflective practice, even if it's just for a minute a day, it doesn't matter, but bring that reflective practice into our daily routine, we will start noticing our triggers. And once we've had that reflective practice, getting into routine, become a little bit more familiar with that reflective practice, we can start to notice the triggers in the moment that they are occurring. And once we are noticing those triggers in the moment they're occurring, that's when the magic begins, right? Because that's when we stop the path. That's when we stop the path, which brings us to the second step. And the second step is incredibly important. We have to call out that trigger. We have to acknowledge it. We have to recognize it. We have to call it out. We have to shout it out. We have to really name it, because that then takes us away from the pathway. It breaks the neural pathway. It literally, from a neuroscience perspective, breaks the path. And we've got to break the path in order for us to head into step 3, which is to reroute the thought, to reroute that thought, and take back control. And there we have it. So 3 steps to take back control, to notice the trigger, step 1, so that we can stop it in its path. Then we need to acknowledge it in step 2 so that we can break it, so that we have to actually break it. And then we can get to step 3, which is rerouting the thought and the manifestation of decision and action and the behavior behind that decision or action. As always, I just want to share with you some ways that you might want to engage in modern mindset for your own practice, or indeed if you are leading change and transformation. So you can level up your practice by getting in touch with me and taking advantage of one of my free mentoring sessions. So just come with your opportunity, with your challenge, with the goal that you're trying to work on in terms of moving things forward in your own practice, or something around change and transformation, humanizing change and transformation in your own system, and we can work that through. Yeah, let's do that. So if you'd like to get hold of that, then please do just send a DM to me via any social media platform, or respond to me directly on email when I send out the recording to everybody later on today from today's session. The other thing that I'd like to do today is I'd like to introduce you to a free worksheet, which is a 20-day trigger challenge, and you can download that that document and go through that trigger challenge yourself, because what that will do is it will help you to understand your own triggers. It's a reflective practice, so after the end of the 20 days you should be at that point where you are starting to be able to recognize your triggers in the moment. And then once you are in the moment, you will be able to then follow step 1, step 2, and step 3, taking back control and starting to design your own practice, your own leadership development. So what I want to do very quickly is just show you exactly what I mean. So bear with me 1 second as I take you to the actual Word document so that we can see exactly what the trigger challenge looks like. So let's have a look at this and share my screen. And this is the trigger challenge. So what you will see is at the top of the document, there is for you here the understanding and the explainer. So there's some information here so that you understand what a trigger is. You can share this with somebody that has never heard of the concept of triggering. You can use this with your team. You can share it with whoever, because all of the information is there for you to understand what a trigger is, where it comes from, the benefits and the value of it, and then of course how to use the journal itself. The only thing that I will say to you is please, please, please do download a copy of this to save it to your own Google Drive, to save it to your own Microsoft OneDrive, or any other document depository and file management system that you're using. But this essentially is your trigger journal. So what you've got is you have got 6 questions, reflective questions that you can ask yourself very, very quickly. It will only take you a couple of minutes a day, and just see whether you can pull yourself through all of the 20 days to really get to understand your triggers. And then what you're able to do is you're able to have just a final kind of overarching reflection on your last 20 days, thinking about, are there any patterns, are there any trends, what have you learned about yourself? And you're ready to go into that step 1, step 2, step 3. This is so important, you know, codifying something like this for our self-awareness, for our ability to start controlling and designing our thinking before it manifests into decision, action, and behavior. So let's pop back into the slides for today in order for us to crack on with the session. So that allows us, if we've got some reflective practice so that we can start to get familiar with the concept of the trigger, then we can go into that 1, 2, 3 to start noticing the trigger and start breaking it, which means that we can then do this. We are rerouting the thought and the decision, action, and behavior, or even a narrative. We are retraining our brain and thought patterns. We are regaining control to design. And the most beautiful thing is, if you remember from me showing you the emotional intelligence 2.0 slide earlier on, is that not only can we start doing this for ourselves, but once we start doing it for ourselves, we can start doing it for others. That's what's so incredibly powerful about this. And we all know that it is the thinking itself that we need to change. It is the thinking differently about the future, about strategy, about change, about transformation. It's the thinking, it's the difference in our thinking that will allow us to build that resilience and that courage to humanize work, change, and transformation. So incredibly important. And this technique works. This technique is the technique that will allow us to do that. As always, I've got a banana skin or two. It's never easy, but neither is it difficult. It's just about routine. So always thinking about making it small enough that you know you can repeat it. If you don't think that you can commit to doing it on a regular basis, it's likely not small enough. So it's really important for you to start to think about how this becomes part of who you are, how this becomes part of your practice. And that's the first banana skin. And of course, the second banana skin as well is, and this is just a default, the more you become aware of your triggers, the more you start noticing them in others. And it's so, so important for us not to place assumption or bias when we are noticing potential triggers in others. It is for us to use techniques like coaching techniques and open questioning and exploration and discussion and conversation to help people to and uncover their own truth, and not for us to to impose bias or assumption upon them. There we go. That brings us to the end of a slightly shorter than usual episode of Humanizing Work, Change and Transformation, bringing the concept of modern mindset into our own practice, as well as our work and our success. And, it is really important because it always begins from the inside out. And as Simon Sinek says, everybody knows what they do. Some people know how they do it. Very few people know why. And it's working from the inside out that really breeds success. Understanding our own self. That's self-awareness. That's the seed from which anything can grow. That's a foundational point that we must all commit to and find the permission within ourselves to protect the practice of self-awareness, because that's where we begin to humanize change, work, and transformation. Thanks so much for listening to me. Please put some comments into the comment box below if you are listening to this on YouTube. And also, I would love to hear from you. Book in a session if you feel that you would like to challenge me and challenge yourself with a particular opportunity, with a particular goal. Just come and talk to me, and I would really love for you to download the trigger journal. I'll be sending it in the email to you with this recording later on today, and I will also be sharing it in the notes section of YouTube when the video goes up live for you all. So take care until next time, and wherever you can, please be self-aware so that you can humanize your own practice, change, and transformation. Take care. Bye-bye.